All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for post-game coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 4 of the National League Championship Series. Now, before we get into all the details of a loss, once again, that I feel like everybody would want to forget, I want to remind everyone to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. For the Mets YouTube channel, the Mets Weekly YouTube channel, to turn on all of our post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you watching on playback, for those of you watching right now, for those of you in the live chat right now, just want to let you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, and if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. And we'll try to pull up as many comments as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, where we just wrapped up my co-host Frank's post-game thoughts for every Mets regular season game. Titled the Mets Frankly Postgame. We will be sure to have some content over there during the off season. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on any of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. And for those of you tuning on audio right now, in the future, make sure to tune in to our pre-game shows about 90 minutes before every single playoff game. That will be going all Mets postseason long, but only on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's get into this post-game show. Now, you guys may notice, whether it is by the title live on YouTube or if you're watching on Twitter, I am supposed to have a special guest on here, but it seems like at the moment they are not available. So hopefully he can join throughout this show, but I guess it's just not meant to be at this current moment, but it's all right. I'm definitely filled with a lot of thoughts, of course, going throughout this game. So I can definitely do enough talking for two people or maybe even three people. Let's just say this is just another loss that you want to forget and pretty much identifies what I think we all know by now. And it's not like it's any secret or, any possibility that this could be wrong. The Dodgers are just on a different level than the Mets. They just are. They have more talent. They have more depth. They have a lot more pitching, obviously. This was another disastrous pitching game. And to be honest, I personally, like I've said before, this team has already exceeded the expectations. They've already exceeded these expectations. And, at the end of the day, it's not as disappointing or something as of if they were to end up losing this series. It's kind of just the fact that they have been getting blown out in pretty much every single one of these games. And it really does show you the types of levels that both of these teams are on. And I think it's already been established that the Dodgers are just a different brand of baseball as compared to this Mets team that has played a lot of good baseball since the beginning of June. And, at some point you knew, that eventually they were going to meet their match, I think the Mets, as much magic as they do have, as magical as they've been, we've known that this was not going to be easy. It was going to be an uphill battle. And now they're in the biggest uphill battle possible, where they're down 3-1. This series isn't over yet, obviously. Mathematically, it's not over. But at the trajectory that it's been going in, most likely the Mets are playing with their backs against the wall. And even though they have excelled at that this season, at the pace that it's been going, we're starting to give it up a little bit. Now, if they were to win tomorrow, maybe the hope will continue. But I will say one thing, from all the momentum that they carried into their home field from game 2, it is all just vanished, completely vanished. 18-2, getting outscored in those 2 games so far. We'll see. I mean, I think that right now it has been established that this Dodgers team is just better than the Mets. They are way better. And to be honest, I've also been seeing a lot of Mets fans talking about it, how they'd rather just play the Padres. I feel like this would have been the same result against this Padres team. Right now, the Mets pitching staff is injured. They're banged up. They don't have that star power that can, push them through a lot of this against a Dodgers team like this that is just completely relentless. They are relentless. They are talented. They are a really good team. And, a lot of culprits were as to the reason why they lost this game, as the reason why this series is going the way that it is. Playing this Dodger team, it pretty much shows, and I think somebody just said it in the chat, playing the Dodgers shows how good you really are. That is true. And it basically shows you where you are at as an organization. There are tons of moves that do need to make this offseason for them to be, put at any other level to go deep into the postseason, and also to establish that this was not a fluke at any point. But those questions will eventually be answered throughout the offseason. Mets are still in this. They're still, they're still here. They're not eliminated yet. But the pivotal game 4, like we said in the pregame show, this pretty much established where this series is going. And right now, it is a 3-1 lead for the Dodgers. We've seen teams blow 3-1 leads before. We have made fun of them in the past in the sports world. How much would I love for that to happen? I would love for it to happen. But right now, the reality of the situation is the Mets are not, 1 hit away. The Mets aren't 1 run away. They're getting beat up. They are getting destroyed, outclassed, outhit, outpitched. They're even getting outmanaged as well, which I've seen a lot of people talking about, which, again, it's kind of just working with what you got. I see a lot of people blaming Mendoza for this, and you can do that if you want to, because this lineup definitely had some question marks in it. There were definitely guys who probably should have played over some other guys. There's been decisions that were made throughout this one that was a little bit questionable. I understand that. But at the end of the day, calling a spade a spade, the Dodgers are better. The Dodgers are just a better team. And I think that that's pretty much been established at this current moment. And hopefully the Mets could get back to the point where they could beat this team in the future. But right now, they're just not at that point. And maybe it does turn around. The Mets, with their backs against the wall, that just seems to be the identity of this team. With their backs against the wall, they just seem to do well. But again, we're still going to be covering this pregame tomorrow for Game 5. David Peterson, it looks like, will be taking the mound for Game 5. He will be getting the start because he was not used today, which I feel like is probably the best move at this current moment with how we saw Senga pitch. But, I think that there's different levels to this. Again, we know that the Mets usually do win with David Peterson on the mound, and he's been a huge impact to this team all year. But when it comes to the Dodgers, one thing I will say, doesn't look like David Peterson has done well against the Dodgers in his career, which he didn't even pitch well. I don't think what was in Game 1 that he pitched. He was not good. And, we'll see what happens. But a lot of things have gone wrong in this series. And it pretty much just shows that the Mets had some kind of a breaking point so far, and they've just been completely blown out. I don't really know how to say it in that fact. I mean, one thing that I will say, the walks with this pitching staff, it needs to be fixed somehow. They need to find a way to fix this going forward, because if they continue to do this, it'll continue to be the death of this team. They have been able to hold it off as much as they can. This year, the Mets have walked the most batters out of anybody in this game. They've been able to work around it. But when you have a Dodgers team that does not chase like this, this is a team that you have to get past if you're going to have this success in the future. They have walked 31 batters. 31 batters in 4 games. These games have been so long because the Mets cannot get the fucking ball over the plate. And that will pretty much be the death of this series if they end up losing, which at the current angle, it looks like they will. Tons of answers do need to be answered, obviously. The hitting approach, still, no matter how far it has gotten them, it's still a massive problem. It still is a massive, massive problem. This inefficiency, this streakiness, this inconsistency, this 0 and 100 stuff, at some point it's going to cost you. It hasn't yet, but this situational hitting has looked like shit all series. They are 0 for, what is it? They were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They were they left plenty of men on base, and as the pitching continued to be overworked as they are with the starters not giving us anything, the lead just got bigger and bigger and bigger for the Dodgers. This was a 3-2 game at one point, and then it was 5-2, then it was 7-2, then it was 10-2. So it just continued to just contribute to roll over and die. And the Mets made it even worse, continuing just to walk batters over and over and over and over again. And that pretty much just puts you and separates you from what the Mets can do as compared to this Dodgers team. And we have not seen just enough from this team where they can shift the momentum at any point. We have seen a Dodgers team that is feasted on a massively just destroyed bullpen right now that is missing a lot of pieces, that is overworked. And right now, it's looking like the final nail in the coffin. Things can change in Game 5, but at this current moment, they have not shown any sort of... I'm not saying they haven't shown any fight, to be honest. I'm not going to say that because they have gotten their opportunities. They're just not cashing them in. But you know, we'll see what happens again. I'll get into the comments here for a second. LSD's coming in saying, y'all have a good team and ball club. Dodger fan here. You've had a great season. Your players are great. Questionable coaching, hurting a great time. Best of luck next year. Now the world knows you're good. Thank you very much. And he said, don't let one series hurt the magic of one team. A high-pressure situation, all in the coach, in my opinion. Much love from LA. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Again, and this has been a successful season. But I think it definitely just showed kind of the identity of this team of how, you know, sometimes the magic does run out here. And, you know, sometimes they're just, you know, the Mets, they've had points where they are beatable. And they've had disgusting losses all year. and they've bounced back from them. But when you run into a team like the Dodgers, there's not really much that you can do. There really isn't. When you get to these top tier teams and you're going to have to beat them 4 times out of 7, that's it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Steve coming in here saying, go Dodgers, beat the Yankees, saying that we are cooked. Listen, at this current moment, it's not looking good. Let's just say that. It's not looking good. I'm not saying that they are done yet, but we'll see. Kirsch Seawood saying, don't worry, Mets in 8, baby. We got this. Listen, I'd love to say Mets in 7. I'd love to say that they come back, but they got to show me something in Game 5 in order for that to be a possibility. Let's just say that. We'll see. I think, listen, I think that there is a lot of blame being shifted at this current moment. The Mets coaching staff to the Mets managing. Listen, I'm not saying I have agreed with everything that has gone on throughout these playoffs. I'm not going to say that I have agreed with what Mendoza has done throughout this series. I mean, it's been pretty questionable with some of the things that he has done. But I think that at the end of the day, for me, it all comes down to the players coming through. And they just haven't. They have had plenty of times where the bases have been loaded. They are, 1 for 11 with the bases loaded. That one being the Mark Vientos grand slam in Game 2. They've had opportunities, and they just were not executing the way that we've seen them execute it this year. And, that's kind of how I look at it. It comes down to the full-on execution of it. I understand that Bader probably should not have played. Martinez probably should not have played. But when it comes to, how this team has played as deep as they actually have been this year, as where it hasn't felt as top heavy, you need to see these players perform. And they're just not. They're not performing. They're not getting the timely hits. They're not getting the timely performances. You're seeing the pitching staff get beat up. A pitcher like Jose Quintana, like we talked about in the pregame show earlier, this is not an ideal matchup for him. It isn't. It's really hard when you're Jose Quintana, who has to pitch around the strike zone with non-flashy stuff that he does have. And it's really hard to look at it from a standpoint of okay, this is a Dodgers team that does not chase. This is a Dodgers team that, right now, I mean, anything you put into the zone, they're going to crush. Quintana has been vulnerable to the home run ball. He needed precise command tonight, and he didn't have it. And not even just from the top of the lineup, the bottom of the lineup as well has destroyed us. Max Muncy has been incredible in this series. Tommy frickin' Edman, I don't even know where the hell this came from, but he's been insane. They've gotten contributions, it's just, we'll see. But at this point, right now, I can just say that I'll be bummed if they lose this series, which, who knows? But I am satisfied with this season as to what the expectation was, as to a lot of the gut punches that they made with the run that they made. I am satisfied with this season. I'm just hoping that going into the offseason, they figure out a way to not make this look like just a miracle run or a fluke run, and they actually, take it into account where, they have to fix some of these problems, even if they made it this far. Because there are a lot of problems on this team. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, but there's a factor of sustainability with this team that has always been up in the air. And this always seemed like the situation throughout the entire season, the problems that they were having at the beginning. It's stuff like this that got put on full display. We know that the walk issue, we know the streaky offense, and, we know that facing this good amount of pitching, it's going to be put to the test. And, they met their match here. They definitely met their match. As for like some of these players, obviously, such as JD Martinez, Rogel coming in here saying, why do you think the Dodgers didn't keep JD Martinez? I'm going to guess that they signed Shohei Ohtani. That's probably going to be my guess. I'm just going to say that. I don't think it has anything to do with the JD Martinez performance. I think it's the fact that Shohei Ohtani was available and they gave him $700 million to be their DH. I think that's probably what happened. To be honest, I was okay with the Martinez signing. I'm not going to go back and say like, oh, well, this should have never happened. But he is 37 years old at the end of the day. So at some point he was going to show his age. Of course, you have to show your age when you put on a Mets uniform. But, I think that at one point, you understand that regressing to the means happens. It does happen. I see some people in the chat talking about Pete Alonso. We'll discuss him in the offseason, of course. There's a lot of conversations that have to be had regarding Pete Alonso, of how they do want to approach this with a lot of the money coming off the books in the offseason. Right now, I'm just kind of seeing how this thing plays out. I've definitely seen at the end of the tunnel where they can do without him in 2025. And then I also see that light where I'm like, okay, maybe they do bring him back. Maybe they do have like a short deal with an option or something. Like maybe they do give him some kind of prove it deal, considering how much, he means to this team and how much he meant for this team. We'll see what they do. I do think that they are motivated to keep him. And for those of you who are not, it's whatever. I personally am okay with either. I really am. But I'm not breaking the bank for Pete Alonso. I definitely am not. I'm not. I would play this very passive. I would let him get whatever offers he wants from any other teams. Go out and get it. And if he wants to come back, whatever. We'll see what happens. But at this current point, there's a lot of things that have to happen in this offseason. We will discuss that. But I do want to get into this game. And even though it is painful to talk about, we do have to run this thing down. For those of you who watched this game, it was pretty much fire from the beginning. On the second pitch of the game, Shohei Ohtani blasted a solo shot into the Mets bullpen to make it 1-0 Dodgers, but Mark Vientos would respond right away, continuing his great postseason campaign, smacking a missile to right center to tie it up at 1 in the third inning after a walk to Shohei Ohtani and a single by Mookie Betts. Tommy Edwin would strike once again and give the Dodgers the lead on a RBI single to make it 2-1. Kike Hernandez would drive in another on an infield RBI single to make it 3-1. After back-to-back singles by Alvarez and Lindor in the bottom of the inning, followed up by a one-out walk to Alonso, Brandon Nimmo would cut the Dodgers lead with a RBI fielder's choice, beating out the throw to make it 3-2. Chris Taylor would beat out a one-out infield ground ball in the fourth, and after a walk to Ohtani, Jose Budo would come in relief for Quintana. Mookie Betts would plate two more on an RBI double to make it 5-2 Dodgers. That would close the book on Jose Quintana. 3 1/3 innings, five hits, 5 earned runs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts on 83 pitches. Phil Maton would come in for the 6th, and after a 1-out walk to Ohtani, Mookie Betts would drive a 2-run homer to left to make it 7-2. In the 8th, Danny Young would come in, make it even worse. Leadoff single by Mookie Betts, walk to Teoscar Hernandez, and Tommy frickin' Edman would double down the line to drive in 2 more to make it 9-2. Will Smith would drive in another one to make it 10-2, and the Mets are now down 3-1 in this series. They went about, I believe it was 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position in this game. They did score, but it was all early on, and it was pretty much Dodgers for those last 2/3 of this game. But we'll see what happens for the rest of this series. But there is a few things that I do want to get into. Brandon Nimmo, let's just say that. Brandon Nimmo in this game, he played his ass off, I'm just going to say. With the foot injury that he has obviously been suffering from since Game 3 in the Phillies series. He beat out that infield hit, of course, and then also got another hit in addition to that. And you could really tell that he's hurting right now. He's definitely in pain. And I would not blame them if they were to sit him in any of these games. But at this current moment, we'll see what happens. But you can tell where this is going. I mean, he's already specified that, he is going to get the PRP injection, and he's going to be wearing a walking boot for the offseason. So definitely, if they were in the middle of the season, this would be addressed right now, but they're in the middle of the postseason. And he wants to play through it. Brandon Nimmo, he has been with this organization for a long time. He's been through a lot of the ups and downs. And, I do understand the feeling of him, playing like, maybe this never does happen again. A playoff win like that. We hope that it does, because he's going to be here for a long time and he will be here to witness it. But when it comes to Nimmo, I think that the fact that I'm pretty sure they calculated it on the sprint speed or whatever. I might have to pull that up here. But he was running pretty fast down the line there. And it was pretty impressive to see that happen, especially when, nothing happened after that. That was probably the most encouraging thing to see. And just to see how much Brandon Nimmo cares in the matter. It's always great to see things like that. It said 29 feet per second, which is a near elite speed down the line. So Anthony DiComo put that out, saying that he was running pretty fast. Let's just say that. That is an near elite sprint speed. That's most likely like 80th percentile, I think, 85th percentile, around there in this league. But, we'll see how this transpires. I do think that he's probably going to still play throughout the rest of this season as long as they are still in contention. But when it comes to the health of Brandon Nimmo, we know he's had health issues in the past. But, I think right now he has been able to stay healthy recently. But when it comes to all of this, where talking about this long term, him being the long term investment that he is, I think that there is a little bit of concern going forward. We'll see what happens. But I think that he's still going to most likely play through it. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like he is going to really, you know, I don't see him surrendering at any point. They've gotten this far with it. But I feel bad. I feel for him. Because we all know how likable Nimmo is. And you know how much of a big impact he has been since his debut. Main thing has always been with Nimmo can he stay healthy? He's been able to stay healthy recently, and you know, to see it end like this, it kind of sucks. But you know, we hope that he does get better, and hopefully, you know, he's ready to go next season. We know that Lindor's been dealing with the back pain as well. It seems like he's still on his A game as well. But, you know, I think that at this point, this team is just running out of gas, and we are all witness of it. And I don't think it's anything to be really embarrassed about. I think that when there's a lot, I know that there's a lot of people upset right now because they don't like losing. I get it. But right now, at the trajectory that they're on under David Stearns at this moment, I do feel confident that this is not going to be the only time we are here. You know, I think it's just the fact that it's a long season and we've seen a lot of the ups and downs, and the Mets definitely have a lot of areas that they need to get better in. And that has been on full display in this series of the top contenders as compared to, you know, some of the contenders that could make some noise, but a lot of things have to go their way. Not much has gone our way in this series, you know? Explosive saying, Carson, how bad do you think Mendoza was in the NLCS? Because I don't think he had a good NLCS. Here's the thing. Okay, I've never been the one to throw the manager under the bus as much because it all really has to do with player execution. When it comes to Mendoza, I don't think he has had a good series. He's definitely made a few decisions where, you know, it has been questioning. The thing about when it comes to Mendoza and as well as David Stearns, 99.9% of the time, I always understand their thought process as to why they make a move. Sometimes I may not agree with it fully, but I understand. When it came to Harrison Bader starting today, we know that he hit Yoshinobu Yamamoto well early on in the season. I wouldn't have gone with that since Bader has been awful in the second half. Along with JD Martinez with the reverse splits against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I get that, you know, I understand it. So it's not really something that I would get very, very angry about in the sense that I don't understand their thought process. Because there was a lot of stuff that Buck Showalter would do, Luis Rojas, Mickey Callaway, guys like that who I didn't understand it. Like, I did not understand whatsoever as to why it was happening. For the Mets right now under Stearns and Mendoza, the decisions I understand. I don't agree with them, but I'm not going to be completely outraged. It's really hard to blame the manager when you're getting blown out like this. It really is. It just is very hard to think about that. I'm just going to tell you that. But Vander saying the Mets getting out last every night. It's embarrassing having a Mets fan since I was a kid and I was born in 1968. Man, you've been around for a while. You know, but I think that at the trajectory that they're going, let me just say, I'm not really worried in the sense of going forward. I think that there is going to be a sustainable winner here, but there are going to be a lot of lessons learned from this season. And there are a lot of moves that need to be made, a lot of things that need to be fixed, even though they have gotten this far in terms of the sustainability, which I saw a lot of the previous regime not really take into account. They just saw it. They'll do it once. They'll do it again. And that's what I'm hoping. And I have faith in David Stearns will do that, because we have seen him make a lot of in-season moves and not refer to his stubbornness, because there was a lot of moves that he made himself that he just got rid of, you know? I think when it comes to, you know, the execution of how they've played on the field, it has not been here in this series. And I feel like it's really hard to blame the manager. It's really hard to blame the decision-making when you're just getting completely blown out like this and getting completely outclassed like this. I don't think putting Harrison Bader in the lineup was the deciding factor in this game. I don't think putting Martinez in the lineup was the deciding factor in this game. I think that a lot has gone wrong. You know, I think that that's kind of how you look at it. One of my good buddies, John Saponaro from Till Mets Do Us Part, saying they have also earned the benefit of the doubt. Their decisions have been spot on. And yes, there's nowhere else to go. The players need to produce. Exactly. And that's what I mean when we're talking about it. Wendell, Diekman, Fujinami, Hauser, those were all Stearns moves. And he kicked him to the curb. So, I mean, we saw a lot of things, especially with Mets GMs, where they just leave it alone and they don't care, or they just try to make things work. Could you imagine if Daniel Vogelbach was stinking it up? You know, could you imagine? Stearns would have took him out. He would have got him out of there. You know, this is a lot different of its work. They have a lot of moving parts. They react well to this. They show some sustainability. Whatever is working, let's plug this thing in. It doesn't matter of performance. It does not matter of their track record if they're a veteran or not. There's been a few that have been questionable, like Adam Ottavino staying with this team the whole time. But in general, there's been a lot of guys who have been DFA'd. There have been a lot of guys that have been let go that are not helping the team. There's been a lot of moves that have been made, a lot of transactions, a lot of moving parts this season. You have a lot of guys on that opening day roster this year that aren't here anymore. A lot. And, you know, hindsight is pretty much 2020 in regards to this. Saying, well, they didn't do enough at the deadline. They didn't do enough at this. They didn't do enough of that. You know, I think that there's people that are very reactionary in this sense. And sometimes you get it from me, and sometimes I cool off and I sleep on it sometimes. But when it comes to, you know, Carlos Mendoza, the guy probably should be manager of the year this year of what he has done for this team this year. Has it been perfect? No, it has not been perfect. And I feel like when people talk about the manager, it's more of an old class thing because the front office usually runs these decisions a lot more. When it comes to pieces like this, of where you're playing a Dodgers team, you don't have the star power to match up their star power, and you're just being absolutely outplayed, it basically shows where you are. You're a contender, but you're just not there yet. And that's fine, personally. It's fine. To get this type of result in year one of Stearns, who they have been chasing forever to be in the front office, I'm satisfied with this year. I'm satisfied. Does it suck that they are losing? Does it suck that they're getting blown out like this? Absolutely. But I understand with a guy like David Stearns, with what he has proven throughout this entire season to me, is that there's more to come. This isn't a one and done. They're going to continue to try. They are going to continue to try and compete this way. And they're not going to panic in the way that everybody wants them to. My guy John still coming in here saying, even with Otto, his role was greatly diminished. Exactly, as his effectiveness went down, especially diminished after the deadline deals. If Brazaban was better, Otto would probably be off the team. Exactly. And then also they had some corresponding moves that they could have made when guys came back off of the injured list. They were expecting to get Sean Reed-Foley back. That never happened. Danel Nunez came back for like one game and was back on the injured list. They were expecting Reed Garrett to come back, and Otto probably would have been the casualty. But for somehow he survived. And now it's starting to die down now. It's been diminished. He's not on the NLCS roster. He was replaced for a position player. So, you know, in the fact of the matter is that I think that right now it's easy to be upset right now. It's very easy to be upset. It's easy to be, you know, pissed off that they're not winning in this series, and it seems like the gas is just running out. But I do have trust in this front office that this is not going to be a one-time thing. Let's just say that. Everyone went into this year thinking this team was going to be a good 10 games under 500. Everyone said that Stearns was picking up a bunch of crap. He was picking up a dumpster. He's signing a bunch of prove-it guys. And a majority of them turned out well. Not every single one of them was perfect. I think we're all just kind of looking for the perfection right now, and it's not here yet. It just isn't. And you're never going to be perfect in a 162-game season. You're never going to be perfect in the playoffs. There's going to be problems. Every team has their problems. But what I saw this year was an efficiently ran ball club. And that is something I have not been able to say since probably their existence, to be honest. Gabriel saying, Jorge Lopez made fun of the Mets on Instagram. Good for him. I'm glad. I am really glad that he is. I'm glad that he can get the laugh. But what he doesn't realize that he is not going to get the National League championship ring. So, you know, joke's on him. Personally, again, whatever. Like, who cares? It's nothing else. Like literally, listen, there's nothing else that you can't say about the Mets. Like, for those of you, and I know there's going to be tons of them, if the Mets do get eliminated tomorrow, there's going to be tons of Dodger fans in here bragging and trying to tear us down here. There's nothing that you can say that hasn't been said already, right? There's nothing that you can say at this current moment to piss me off, right? If you want to say that the Mets have looked like shit in this series, the Dodgers have absolutely killed them as a Dodgers fan. If you want to say that, go ahead and say that, because it's true. You want me to prevent you from telling the truth? I mean, I understand trash talk. Again, I'd say some of my co-hosts trash talk a little bit more than me, but in the reality of the situation, when it comes to, you know, what they've been able to be, you know, what they have actually dealt out this season, I am confident, you know? Yeah, CS saying, coming in, he said, I'm already in here, dude. No need to say anything. Your face and voice is saying it all for us. Listen, I understand that, you know, trash talk is part of it. And listen, everybody that wins, they deserve to trash talk. Personally, like I'm not going to trash talk anybody in any way if my team loses. Like, I'm not really that way of a sore loser. I just I'm upset when my team loses, but I'm not one to really take it out on the other team's fan base because they deserved it. If they win, they deserve it. Like that. That's kind of how I look at it. Not how many sports fans or New York sports fans are like. Because there's a lot of bias in the situation. But we'll see. Unique here in the chat saying Mets fight isn't over. It's not over. It definitely isn't over, and they could definitely get back into this series with a win tomorrow. If they don't, they're going home. But the reality of the situation, saying Game 5 is Judgment Day, absolutely, 100%. And I think that it's very easy to establish that if the Mets could get back into this series. Let's say if they could force a Game 6 or a Game 7. It'll show the fight in this team that we have seen all year. But I would not be surprised if they didn't get the job done. I wouldn't be surprised because this is a good Dodgers team. I have said this so many times throughout our pre-games and post-games throughout this entire series. The Dodgers are really good. They're really, really good. And at the current position that they are in, from the expectation that we have had, they exceeded the expectations. And I am hopeful for the future that David Stearns is going to lead us to this sustainable winner every single year. I am confident. I definitely am confident with how this team is being ran. And for a 2024 year that was supposed to be a transition year, getting all the way to the NLCS, I think is a success, personally. And I'm not saying that to cope. I'm not saying that to make myself feel better, because it sucks losing like this. It does. It 100% sucks. You think I want to watch these 3+ hour games the way that I have been, where the Mets are just walking everyone? They're getting blown out. It's just absolute awful baseball. And it's what resembles like the 2012 Mets, where it's just completely unwatchable. Yes, it sucks. But hey, we're here for it. What are we going to do? What are we going to switch sides now? We've gotten this far. I ain't going anywhere. If the Mets, if they haven't gotten me to quit and switch teams already, they're never going to do it. Again, I think that when it comes to Dodger fans or Mets fans or whatever fan you are, you enjoy these high moments. You want to see this team your team in the postseason, and if they succeed, great. And if they don't, happens, But History Barf coming in here, great name by the way, saying Mets fans converting to Yankees fans is going to be epic. Not going to happen. I can tell you right now. Trust me, we have seen the worst of the worst ever happen to an organization with the Mets. Crazy things have happened with this team. If they haven't gotten us yet, it's never going to happen. Trust me. We have had bizarre things. We have had awful things. We have had embarrassing things. We have had ridiculous things. We have had tons of times where the Mets have beat themselves. And I'm sure there's going to be times where it continues to happen. But for it to get better, they're in good hands right now. They are in good hands. They have an executive that knows how to put a winning product on the field, and he knows how to bring up that sustainability. And there's a lot to come. There's a lot to come. Let's just say that. But we could talk about the future and what that holds. But when it comes to the Mets right now, they are still in this thing. 3-1. You got to win 3 in a row now. They have to win 3 straight games in order to go to the World Series. Mets backs are against the wall right now. If, we'll see what happens again. And if it sounds like I'm not speaking as clearly right now, and maybe there's a lot of pauses and maybe some stutters or whatever, I'm just exhausted. I really am. I really am exhausted of this grind of a postseason. It has been a blast, of course, for every single game, covering it. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. I love this team, love the game of baseball, and the Mets definitely put on a show this year. They definitely did. It was a successful season. Let's just say that. Now, one thing that I do want to say that I actually have not gotten into is the studs and duds of this game. It's pretty self-explanatory for me. My stud, I would probably go with Mark Vientos. I also could put Lindor on here because he definitely seemed to come through still. I could put Nimmo in here as well. The duds, I think Quintana, it's pretty easy, but it's in all fairness, this is not a good matchup for him. Let's just say that. I think that JD Martinez probably can be put in there as well. Harrison Bader was not good. Obviously, when it comes to this game, it's really hard to point out the studs here because there was a lot of shit. Let's just say that. It was not great. But I think Vientos, with his incredible postseason run and how he has just emerged the way that he has, and he's one of the main reasons as to why we think, the future's bright here. And, he's definitely a future piece to this team, and he's hit himself on to this team. We'll see what happens. We know that for Game 5, there are going to be is it the Temptations? I have no clue. They're going to be singing My Girl tomorrow, Lindor's walk-up song before the game. So, one last hurrah, one last chance for them to stay into this one. But again, it's going to be the end of, if they do, and if they end up losing, it is going to end up being the end to a successful season. And I think that everyone's going to look at it from there as that. I think in comparison to 2022, they won 101 games. They basically face planted into the postseason. They had the highest payroll in baseball. They still do, but a lot of that payroll is on other teams right now at this current moment. But they were trying to win a World Series. So seeing them lose in the first round, that was a disappointment. Given the expectations this year and the trajectory that this team is on in the future going forward, it definitely was a success. But we still have things to talk about, of course, with the Mets on the field. For those of you who enjoyed a lot of this season, I still would watch the game. Of course, this could be the last time you see this team for a while, and you never know. We'll see what happens. But again, it's just me here. I was supposed to have a special guest, but he was unable to make it, it seems like. I understand. I am recording this at a very late point. We are live, and I'm pretty sure everybody else would like to go to bed. I would like to go to bed as well. Definitely a tough loss here. Let's just say that. And let's hope that they can get back into this game. Let's hope they can get back into this series. They have a lot of work to do in order to stay alive. They're going to have to take it one game at a time. Really rough loss. It's been a rough series. Maybe they can turn it around. But like I said, this has been a successful season, and I would like for Mets fans to look at it as such. If you don't, and you just don't like losing, and you have a sour taste in your mouth, and you want everyone fired, and you want everyone traded, I don't know what to tell you. Apply for the front office job, and those dreams might come true for you. All right, so I'm going to stay on for about 5 more minutes for you guys. If you guys want to ask any more questions, keep it, Mets related as you can. And then I will pretty much end it off here. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at I believe it'll be 3:30 for pre-game coverage for Game 5 of the National League Championship Series, Mets versus Dodgers. And then, of course, our podcast, which is going to be our post-game. It's going to be our post-game, of course, which will be our podcast that will be available on audio, of course, at 9 a.m. the following day. Earlier today, I had a little bit of a trouble with the post-game for Game 3, but it got out around noon. So that hopefully that doesn't happen again. I guarantee it won't because I think I fixed the problem. So we'll see. But make sure to follow us on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok as well. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Turn on post notifications. Like the stream if you have not. And, of course, follow all of us individually, including my co-hosts, Frank and Andrew. They most likely will be available, I'm hoping. I've been making promises about guests these past few days, and it has not worked out, apparently. So I don't know who's going to be in attendance. I most likely will be alone for the pregame show. But as for the postgame show, Frank will definitely be here. We'll see if Andrew can be here. And hopefully it's not the last postgame show. Let's just say that. The Mets have one more chance to get back into this one, and hopefully they do. And of course, like I said, any other questions in this chat? History Barf coming in here. I love that name. That's awesome. Do you think Nimmo is holding you guys back? I mean, I think that the injury is holding him back. Nimmo's a great player. Again, I think that he'll bounce back. He's been our most consistent player ever since he's made his debut with the Mets in 2016. Kerr saying, should we trade the farm for Trout? No, I would not. Injury riddled, pretty shitty contract. Definitely would not. But we'll see. Again, it may sound like I am not speaking as clearly right now. And it may sound like I'm just kind of drowsing through this one. But again, we'll see. CS saying, how many runs do you think the Mets will allow the blowout Dodgers? Listen, they have blown us out 3 times already. So if it happens again, it will. Winker was solid in the playoffs. Unique saying that. Yeah, absolutely. MC saying trade for Trout. He's hurt and misses countless games every year. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't do something like that. Bring back Verlander. I would not bring back Verlander. They need to get younger, more upside. But at the end of the day, thank you to everybody who came in here, who commented, who liked, who subscribed, who watched the entire thing. But at the end of the day, listen, it's been a rough series. Let's just say that. They still have a chance in the matter mathematically, and hopefully they can get back into it. But again, it has been a great series. CS saying, hey, you're a great host, man. Thank you for the podcast. Absolutely. And we are on after every single post game. Off season coming forward, we are most likely going to go once a week. But a lot more in regards to the off season, a lot more content coming your way, guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm going to go to bed. Of course, I'm going to configure the audio for this one. I'm going to go to bed. If you guys like these more chill streams, let me know. We might do a few of them during the off season in between podcasts. But again, this thing isn't over, of course, like I said. And hopefully we will have a positive post-game tomorrow. And hopefully, we can continue this postseason coverage. And even though we've been live a lot, We've been doing a lot of episodes. We've been going live pretty much twice a day. It has been a blast to do it. It has been awesome. And you guys have definitely come through with a lot of support. Even fans from other teams definitely tuning in as well, giving their insight. Mets fans giving their insight, of course. It's been also some great banter with my co-hosts, who definitely we bounce off pretty well as well. It's been a hell of a ride. Let's just say that. It's been a fantastic season. So I cannot thank you guys anymore for that. And the numbers that go up every day, and the amount of you guys that support our show, I cannot thank you guys enough. And we're definitely not done, of course. We still have, some games to go, hopefully. We still have some games to play. And then, of course, off-season content. And we keep going. And we're diehard Mets fans, no matter what, win or loss. We are live. We take it on head on, and we give you our brutal, honest opinion, as per usual. Okay, so I'm going to end it off here, guys. Like I said, like the stream, subscribe if you hadn't already. Turn on post notifications to not miss our live streams before and after these postseason games, pre-games, and our post-game, which is our podcast that is available at 9 a.m. the following day. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok, all of us individually. The links are in the description. And yeah, great show, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And let's just say it's been one hell of a ride. It was a great run by the Mets. If tomorrow is the final game they play. And of course, we are here till the end. Gonna end this one off, guys. And we'll see you guys next time. Let's go Mets. Hopefully this doesn't end because it's been a great run. But peace out, and we'll see you guys next time.